It's possible you've heard of a little-known, older Disney film called Cinderella, which, according to its own canon, is the sweetest story ever told. Featuring the titular character, alongside a multitude of wonderful animal pals, as well as her fairy godmother. We have Jacques, Octavius, Bruno, Gus, Lucifer, Charlton Heston, Dopey, Mary, Helena Bonham Carter, Perla, Mouse 3, Susie, Mouse 4, Sir Hugh, Major, and Jacques. It's the inspirational story about a girl who loses her father and is bullied by her stepmother and stepsisters. But through the power of hope, she manages to overcome adversity. You may recall that I recently listed all of Cinderella's animal friends and then claimed that her father had died. The circumstances around her father's death are not divulged in the movie, but based on this one shot alone, it is fairly likely that Cinderella's stepmother may have had something to do with it. Thank goodness then that she has all these wonderful friends to take care of her and to talk to her, or else she'd probably go completely insane. Lady Tremaine, her stepmother, is a pretty envious and heartless individual that takes every opportunity to undermine Cinderella's chances at happiness in the long run and in the short term. The stepsisters aren't much better at this point in time either, constantly dropping every demand they can think of on her and making fun of her desire to go to the ball. Going from having a loving father that gave her everything, to dealing with persistent abuse from a woman who was pretty much married for the sake of being a good mother to Cinderella, as the movie says. We don't hear much of anything about Cinderella's real mom in the story either, just that her father was a widower. It can reasonably be assumed that her mother was loving, because the beginning of the story portrays Cinderella as having been happy. Like I said earlier, this kind of staunch change in a person's life can have some mental strain. When it comes to the animal friends, the only one introduced in the context of the story is Gus, who appears around 8 minutes into the film. Cinderella and the other mice explain to Gus that Cinderella will not harm him and that he is safe, assuming that he avoids Lucifer, the cat. I also like to think that because she gave him the real name Octavius before nicknaming him Gus, his name is a reference to Caesar Augustus. Gus helps the viewers get a feel for the way that Cinderella handles her business. Being introduced as an outsider to her world, things can be explained to Gus so that the audience can know things that the characters in the world should already be privy to. Gus, Jack, and the other mice seem to really enjoy helping Cinderella, which is great. But when you think about it, when was the last time you heard of an actual mouse making a dress? Or talking, for that matter? I know what you're thinking, but Cinderella's mice friends are cartoon mice. This is a noteworthy distinction, but let's direct our attention to Cinderella herself to address that idea. If you look closely at Cinderella, and I mean like, you look really close, you can see that Cinderella is a human being. Interestingly, Cinderella is supposed to be representative of a real human person. She doesn't have cartoonish or exaggerated features. Let's take a walk a little further along into the film. If you look at Lady Tremaine, she is clearly representative of a realistic person. She is evil, and illustrates that, like in real life, evil is not a giant demon or conventional monster. Often it just looks like a person. This is more proof that Cinderella is supposed to be stylized more realistically. She isn't an evil octopus person, an evil advisor sorcerer person, or an evil dragon person. She's just an evil person, like in the real world. Cinderella is a down-to-earth story portraying the realistic and literal struggles of our young heroine. Lastly, the pumpkin. To show how realistically the film is supposed to be interpreted, I did a little research. According to the Disney Fan Wiki, the animators actually recorded footage as reference materials. That means that it's safe to assume the animators actually used magic on a pumpkin to make it grow, for references to draw. Augustina Dubois, someone very close to the film's production, is rumored to have said, and I quote, "Yeah, I mean, that's probably pretty close to how something like that would happen if you use magic and stuff on it. I mean, I don't know." This helps us confirm once and for all that the film is not to be thought of as a cartoony depiction of a stylized reality, but a cartoon depiction of our reality instead. So, back to the mice. What allows these mice to speak? The answer to that question is going to take us back to the beginning of the film. If you recall that Cinderella had loving parents that died and consider her situation now, you might just be happy that the mice are here for her, however it is that they can talk. We can see here that Cinderella has always had a great relationship with animals, as she is seen alongside her father petting this horse, who, interestingly enough, doesn't appear to say anything, and is also accompanied by what appears to be a cardboard cutout of a puppy. Interestingly though, the only animals that speak during the film are the mice. The birds sing. Major, I'm pretty sure doesn't make any noise at all. Bruno only makes dog noises, and Lucifer screeches a couple of times. Then Cinderella never talks about her father even once in the film. She never wishes her father could be there for the wedding or anything. Animals don't talk. Then Cinderella is pretty well traumatized, and now suddenly they do? In her loneliness and dealing with terrible trauma, Cinderella had a breakdown at some point after her father's death, causing her to have a psyche crack right down the middle. In her breakdown, she started being able to understand the mice. But Lucifer is a cat that lives there though, so how can the mice be real? Lucifer actually ate all the mice a long time ago, but now Cinderella's partitioned brain hallucinates the mice that she used to take care of when her father was alive. Cinderella couldn't accept the idea that her father would abandon her, so she developed multiple personalities to cope. Her father isn't really gone, just being represented by the mice. They are simply a venue to cope with her very real and very difficult reality. It's like her father never abandoned her to this terrible fate. She still has him to keep her safe from Lady Tremaine. Cinderella isn't just holding her father as another personality. Ever heard of a character called the Fairy Godmother? She's hosting 3 personalities in there to help her through all these hard situations. Only when things got real bad did the Fairy Godmother suddenly appear to fix everything. This was her 3rd personality, forming right before the audience's eyes. Remember, Cinderella's the only person to directly interact with and talk to the mice and the Fairy Godmother. You probably don't need to count to see that the mice are far more than one individual, yet I said Cinderella has only 3 personalities. Well, according to Google, dissociative personality disorders are only probably not hereditary, which still means that there is a possibility that that could be a thing. Upon the death of his wonderful wife, whom we have established was definitely very loving to Cinderella, Cinderella's father had a breakdown, worried about what would happen to his young daughter. He was clearly unstable, so much so that he married someone visibly cartoonishly evil. Before that though, he developed multiple personalities to cope with the terrible situation he was in. His heart was shattered into a dozen tiny mouse-sized pieces. He had a personality that was helpful but silly, named Jacques, and ones that were more feminine, named Perla and Susie, as well as a dozen others. Cinderella was very aware of her father's condition, which is why when he died and she developed a version of her father's personality as one of her own, the multiple personalities of her father became one of her personalities. Cinderella definitely has dissociative identity disorder, one identity of which has its own dissociative identity disorder, resulting in 2 layers of dissociated identities, for a total of 10 different personalities swimming around in Cinderella's head, with various levels of abstractions to go along with them. Bert, Mert, Luke, Susie, Perla, Mary, Jacques, Gus, the Fairy Godmother, and Cinderella herself. No one else interacts with these characters but Cinderella. There is no real evidence that they were ever even there. It's possible that real mice do show up at times during the movie, but Lucifer catches the real mice and eats them, like in the scene where Lucifer catches Gus after he startles the stepsister. It seems so obvious once you see it. Cinderella is not a happy or healthy person, and as we see in the 2nd film, she doesn't get better right away. But by the 3rd film, the personalities are down to just 4. Cinderella, the Fairy Godmother, Jacques, and Gus. There are reasons to suspect that those films aren't canon, but I like to think that she starts to bring those other personalities back into herself over time. It seems like those personalities that are the biggest help are the ones that stick around, so I don't know if she's just getting more reliant on them to cope as time goes on, or what. It's possible that her father's personality began to heal over time, and thus more of the mice became narrowed to just the 2. There is so much more evidence to support this idea that I wouldn't even call it a theory, more like an in-depth look at the Cinderella lore. Tune in next time to find out why her mother had dissociative identity disorder as well. No guys, I'm just kidding. That would be ridiculous. She does. I just don't have time to make a video about it. Speaking of time, I won't keep you for much more. Leave a dislike down below, because if I say that and I get a bunch of dislikes, I can pretend it's because you like me. Leave a comment if you think you can contribute to the theory, or you think that you found some small evidence that could possibly hurt the theory. It seems rock solid to me, but hey, I don't know. Jesus loves you and so do I. Tune in next time, and goodbye.